Folks, welcome to Movie News Monday, where every single Monday, live on Twitch, we talk about the world of entertainment. We're talking film, television, MCU, DCU, all the U's, you get it. So hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching this live, thank you so much for coming over here live. We get to talk about this together and y'all get to influence the show. So make sure you stop by Mondays at 8:30. But first, we got to talk about a major update in the world of entertainment. Disney, the Walt Disney Company, has crowned their new CEO. Josh D'Amaro has officially been named CEO of the Walt Disney Company, replacing Bob Iger, who replaced Bob Chapek, who replaced Bob Iger. So Josh D'Amaro is the official CEO, but that's not all of it. The new announcement, the part that maybe nobody expected, is that Dana Walden has been named President and Chief Creative Officer. So, what does that mean? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Disney really has a storied history of operating as a sort of dual leadership structure, and it actually goes all the way back to the inception of the company. The company's namesake, Walt Disney, was sort of the chief creative of the company. He was more focused on the vision and the imagination and the play of it all, while his brother Roy Disney actually operated a lot of the business dealings, the finances, the logistics, the actual operations, all that kind of stuff. And that was repeated a couple times throughout the years, including back during the Disney Renaissance period, where Michael Eisner was the CEO. He was working with, I believe it was Jeffrey Katzenberg at the time. Let me see. Mike Eisner, Jeff Katzenberg? Yes, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who would eventually go off to, work on another entertainment company. Thank you so much, chat, for confirming with me. And we haven't seen that structure in quite some time. So when Bob Iger took over for the CEO position, his vision for Disney was really expansion and consolidation. During Bob Iger's years, he completed the Pixar acquisition, the ESPN acquisition, the ABC acquisition, so many more. Lucasfilm, Marvel, 20th Century, so many different acquisitions and mergers, but ultimately all to better strengthen the brand. And when Bob Iger stepped back, Bob Chapek took over. So we went from one Bob to another, one Bob after another. And Bob Chapek had a very short tenure, about 2 years, maybe a little bit less, where he was very suddenly let go and replaced with Bob Iger, who was brought back to run the company to basically clean up the mess that Bob Chapek did. But lost track of how much he brought into Disney. A lot. But there's been a lot of conversations regarding who would take over once Bob Iger, see, there's too many Bobs. Once Iger steps down, who would officially replace him? And now we have our answer. So Josh D'Amaro, who was the chairman of the company's experiences division, essentially he ran the theme parks, will now be taking over. And as we mentioned, Dana Walden is now the president and chief creative officer. The board of directors said that Josh has demonstrated a strong vision for the company's future and a deep understanding of the creative spirit that makes Disney unique in an ever-changing marketplace. Obviously, they want someone who can see the future of the company, but also really recognize what the strengths of the companies are. There's a lot of people who are speculating that Josh would be the one to lead the charge here, seeing that, it's like not even by a slim margin, like significantly the money that Disney brings in comes from the parks division. So it's not a huge surprise to see the man in charge of what has been some of the largest expansion in the parks profitability over the past few years would be taking over. As well, Josh D'Amaro said, Disney's strength has always come from our people and the creative excellence that defines our stories and experiences. There's no limit to what Disney can achieve. Iger said Josh D'Amaro is an exceptional leader and the right person to become our CEO. His ability to combine creativity with operational excellence is exemplary. So there's a lot of confidence for folks surrounding him. And speaking of Dana Walden, Bob Iger added, Dana is an excellent leader who commands tremendous respect from the creative community. She has accumulated great knowledge about the many facets of our business and brand and is very well prepared to be president and chief creative officer. Dana Walden is going to be a very important person to keep our eye on as far as what is going to be leading the charge, especially as it comes to the film and television world. Dana worked in the ABC land for a lot of her career. She was famously involved with the difficult decisions surrounding Jimmy Kimmel during that whole debacle. But Dana also has a lot of relationships that she's bringing into the world of Disney that are going to be very important moving forward as far as different directors, producers, creative agencies, casting agencies, etc., that are going to be partnering with Disney, distribution deals, all that kind of stuff, as well as partnering very closely with all of the different subsidiary arms of Disney that we mentioned before. So, all signs right now, if you were nervous what this meant for Marvel or Lucasfilm, which we know just had their own leadership transition, what does this mean? All signs point to things staying pretty closely the same right now. So Dana Walden used to be co-chairman with Alan Bergman, but Alan Bergman will now be the sole chairman of entertainment, who will now be reporting to Dana Walden, and all the major leadership umbrella will now report up. So Alan Bergman is number 2, Dana Walden is number 1 as far as all the entertainment divisions go. So that means people like Kevin Feige, Dave Filoni, Pete Docter, everyone like that will be reporting up to Bergman and ultimately all the way up to Dana Walden. And then the question asks, some people are worried, what does this mean as far as Kevin Feige with Marvel Studios? Because for some reason, everyone's always trying to figure out, is this the time that Kevin Feige is going to leave? And insiders are reporting that Feige's future at the company is very set. Don't expect to change anytime soon. He is very focused on delivering the next few Avengers movies and getting the X-Men started. For those of you who don't know, Kevin Feige, who's the current president of Marvel Studios and the architect of the MCU, truly, started his career in the world of Marvel with the X-Men movies as a producer's assistant. So that man is going to see it through his own version of the X-Men. Another thing to point out here is that some insiders are a little bit worried about a Chapek 2.0 situation because famously Bob Chapek was also the head of Parks and Experiences prior to being promoted. But, all signs point to this being a much different story to tell. But hey, we could never have predicted a pandemic. We never could have predicted insane political tensions and insane cast member pushback and overinflation of a streaming service, which was really what ended Bob Chapek's tenure as a leader there. So last thing I'll say here about the Disney executive announcement, which yes, this is all very important things, and it is going to trickle down into a lot of the content we care about. This is also an opportunity for me to say, ha 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 ha, na 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 boo boo, I was right. If you don't know, and we're going to be keeping track of this all throughout the year, I made 26 predictions of things that would happen throughout 2026, and we have our first winner here, that Josh D'Amaro becomes Disney's CEO. So we're keeping track. I'm gonna come with receipts. I'm shooting for. Oh, actually, did we set a goal? Chat, did we set a goal for my predictions? 65%. That might have been carried over from the last from the Golden Globes format. What do you think, chat? Should we put some stakes on these predictions? Everyone put a pin on that. We'll come back to it. maybe we'll put some stakes on this, because if you don't know, shamelessly plugging my other content, I am running a competition here with my chat to see if I could predict 85% of the Academy Award nominations. We did announce all my predictions live on stream, and should I be less than 85%, we have a wheel here where we would spin to watch some of my old content, since I have been posting on YouTube since 17 years ago, I believe it was. So just hypothetically, let's just say hypothetically what it would be here if we just spin this wheel. Ooh, a college film. Hey, actually, I'm okay with that. I'm pretty proud of the films we made back in college. So that wouldn't be the worst thing. But make sure you stick around. We have 1 month until the Academy Awards. So it's coming up. Our next story, folks, I am so happy to report that the Muppet Show is killing it on Disney Plus. If you didn't know, and if you've been watching my stream, I know that you knew, the Muppets have returned, spearheaded by executive producer Seth Rogen and with special guest star Sabrina Carpenter. The Muppet Show just came back to Disney Plus and ABC. It's their first time being on the small screen since, that interesting little show that ran for one season that was basically The Office, but it was the Muppets. We don't talk about that one too much. But the Muppet Show, in its old school traditional sort of SNL style format, is back, and it scored a 3.07 million views during its ABC premiere, as well as being trending in 59 countries on Disney Plus. So, hey Josh D'Amaro, hey Dana Walden, we have teed you up here with the easiest W for your first decisions as heads of the company. Give us a full season order of the Muppets. I gotta know your dream guess if they bring back the Muppet Show. Thank you so much for asking, chat. I would love to discuss this. While y'all think about who you want to see on the Muppet Show, I would love to see that in chat and in the comments. I think, for me, Catherine Hahn, easy Catherine Hahn. She would be incredible. Weird Al Yankovic, because his whole existence happened, everything happened in between the Muppet shows. We're owed that. And for some reason, I cannot get this picture out of my head. I feel like it would work so well. Jonathan Bailey from Bridgerton and Wicked. I just feel like he's got something. He's got that je ne sais quoi that I think the Muppet Show could really benefit from. But it is a Disney property, so you could argue like you can get some Disney stars in there. Would be great to see Steve Martin and Martin Short on there. Steve Martin, of course, was on the original Muppet Show. Who else? Let's get Zendaya on there. She wouldn't do it. I feel like she wouldn't do it. And Kumail Nanjiani. That's my last pick there. I think Kumail Nanjiani would be perfect for the Muppet Show. So let me know who you'd like to see on the Muppet Show. We guessed Sabrina Carpenter. Let me just say, when the news first leaked that this was going to be happening, I fully called that Sabrina would be this guest. So if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It's like the most heartwarming 30 minutes that you'll have, I guarantee. Fresh off the heels of Apple TV announcing that they are going to be adapting the Cosmere universe, HBO says we are not done with the fantasy genre. Baldur's Gate TV series is officially coming to HBO, coming from Craig Mazin from The Last of Us and Chernobyl. This was, I feel like, an absolute out of left field announcement. On one hand, I thought that maybe Craig Mazin would be a little bit too busy with Last of Us Season 3 to announce a new massive undertaking like this. And additionally, HBO, we thought, was pretty secure in their fantasy storytelling with Game of Thrones. They just launched, their new Game of Thrones spinoff. They have more reportedly in the works, but no, they heard the news about Cosmere. They have Harry Potter working too, but I don't know. Maybe they've seen a lot of the tough conversations that have been happening there and decided, you know what, Baldur's Gate, let's get into D&D. Stranger Things is over. Let's really show people what D&D is all about. So if you're not familiar with Baldur's Gate, and honestly, I would be shocked if you weren't, but just in case, Baldur's Gate is a game that is set in the world of D&D. It is a super easy stepping stone into Dungeons and Dragons if you've never played before. But Baldur's Gate recently had Baldur's Gate 3 come out, which was a massive success, an incredible game. And Craig Mazin is going to be adapting essentially a sequel series to Baldur's Gate 3. The show is going to be set in the world of Wizards of the Coast, and it's going to be set directly after the events of Baldur's Gate 3. So it will be a sequel show. It will have returning characters. It will have new characters. So much going on there. I have no idea what to expect with this. All that being said, Craig Mazin is going to create, write, executive produce, and showrun the show. So he is fully involved, as well as Chris Perkins is going to be involved as a consultant. He is the former head of story at Wizards of the Coast, so he is fully involved in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. On the show, Mazin said, after putting nearly 1,000 hours into the incredible world of Baldur's Gate 3, it is a dream come true to be able to continue the story that Larian and Wizards of the Coast created. Deadline reported that The Last of Us is expected to end with Season 3, which if you've ever played Last of Us Part 2 video game, it kind of tracks given where Season 2 left off. So this is maybe just what's going to be coming next. So I'm very curious for folks, especially if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, if you've seen The Last of Us. I know that there's, in the Venn diagram, a lot of people exist who have played that game and seen that show. What do you think about this? What do you think about Baldur's Gate being adapted into a television series? What do you think about Craig Mazin being the one in charge of it? Frankly, I do like him as a storyteller. Chernobyl was an incredible show. The Last of Us Season 1 was really good. I had some issues with Season 2, but I don't know that I fully lay it on him. And at the end of the day, I'm super excited to see more Dungeons and Dragons storytelling as I sit here on my desk with my... tried to take it out smoothly. As I sit here on my desk with my dice. Curious how he does going from a linear Last of Us story to a non-linear Baldur's Gate world. I think ultimately, I do think at the end of the day, it is probably a benefit that he's not doing a straight adaptation here. Perhaps some of the limitations of being stuck in the linear story that Last of Us was based in was some of the challenges that presented itself during the writing, and just being set in the world of Baldur's Gate and being told, these are your characters, this is the world, this is your playground, do what you will. Maybe that's going to present a better challenge for him and ultimately could lead to a better series. It exactly like Chat's saying here, it does have a lot of freedom, and perhaps that's for the best. And I mean, it's a great world to exist in. People all over the world create their own stories in this world constantly. So it's got to be pretty good, all things considered. But folks, Apple TV has the Cosmere universe. HBO is all in on Baldur's Gate. We know that Amazon Prime has Lord of the Rings. But what's Disney bringing into the mix? Oh, Eragon. That's right. If you were worried that Disney was going to get left behind in the world of fantasy television series, not so fast. The Eragon adaptation is a go, and we now have our showrunners and executive producers. So, if you can think back to, God, what feels like 20 years ago at this point, there was an Eragon movie, but the Eragon books, look, let me tell you, I remember being in elementary school, and this was the first time that like I saw a book go viral. It was like the weekend happened, and then we came back, and then everyone was like, "Are you reading Eragon?" Was that movie literally 20 years ago? Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Oh no. Oh no, it was literally 20 years ago. Oh no. So Eragon is a fantasy series. It was a trilogy of books, but then it expanded to quite a bit more than that. It is a fantasy world that we actually have a summary here. When destiny selects an ordinary teenager to become the first dragon rider in over 100 years, he must forge an unbreakable bond with his dragon, master ancient magic, and challenge the Mad King who destroyed the riders. So it is like perfect sort of wish fulfillment fantasy storytelling, and very much potential for a long-running series here, but Disney Plus is now going ahead with this adaptation. They have hired their showrunners, Todd Harden and Todd Helbing. So Todd H and Todd H are going to be running the show as co-showrunners, alongside Eragon author Christopher Paolini. Now, if you can put your mind back 20 years ago, I know some of you watching literally can't, and that hurts me to my core. But Christopher Paolini cares a lot about this world, and he put a lot of time and investment into this series. And he, again, when these books went viral, he did as well. And a man that very responsibly showed the care that he had for this world. But he's also going to be involved as a showrunner, which I love to see. You know, I love to see that Brandon Sanderson with the Cosmere universe is going to be the showrunner. I love seeing with like Percy Jackson that Rick Riordan is heavily involved in the writer's room, even writing some of the episodes. And, you know, I love seeing that J.K. Rowling has nothing to do with the Harry Potter show that they're currently making. Mark Webb from the Amazing Spider-Man series is also on board as an executive producer. Will he direct some of the episodes? I hope so. He's a pretty decent director. Now, if you want to know some of the credits of the creative team involved, Todd Harthen is involved in the hit series High Potential over on ABC. That's the Caitlin Olsen vehicle, but has worked on shows like Psych. And then Todd Helbing was, my boy, a champion of the forgotten days of the CW. And he he was involved on Superman and Lois, as well as The Flash, and some of the other shows like Spartacus and Smallville and things like that. So this is the crew. This is the team. Frankly, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's fun to see a little bit of a resurgence as far as fantasy storytelling. With all of these announcements, I would not be shocked to see all of these start to come out around similar times, which is crazy to think about. We're just gonna be swimming in it, and it's gonna be great. We're gonna be fighting knights and dragons and magic and wizards on our TV screens for the next 15 years if all goes according to plan. Now, with all of these great announcements, literally like Dungeons and Dragons, Baldur's Gate, Eragon, Cosmere, what are we missing? What is there any fantasy stories that we are missing out on that need to get adapted, or are we okay? Are we at a point right now where we can go like, you know what, we can slow down for a little bit. We can leave some of these can stay books. As someone who like just started reading again for the first time in what feels like 20 years, I got a lot of catching up to do in the world of fantasy storytelling. So I'm frankly glad to be seeing some of it coming to the small screen. Austin Butler will be playing Lance Armstrong in a new movie from the Conclave director, Edward Berger. Huh? All right, I have two requirements for this movie. We spend way too much time talking about the one testicle because For some reason, everyone needs to know that. And we have a completely played serious, no jokes, no bit, dedicated montage to the Livestrong bracelet phenomenon. You know, speaking of elementary school, I remember during the Livestrong phase where like you'd see how many of those like silicone bracelets you could get. And obviously the yellow Livestrong one was important, but like I can specifically close my eyes and remember being in PE and there was this one girl, what was her name? I think her name was Siobhan. Siobhan, if you're watching this, you have scarred me. Because she showed up, she walked into the gymnasium, literally to her elbows on one arm, to her elbows on the other arm, full of bracelets. And that was the day where I was like, you know what? Maybe we're going too far. Maybe we're going too far. And it wasn't even the thick ones. This was before the thick ones really started happening. It was covered. So I'm gonna need that in this movie. Well, Austin Butler, I guess, is going for his other biopic Oscar, and he's going to be portraying Lance Armstrong. Obviously, Lance's story has been exceedingly more complicated following the doping scandal that took place a few years ago. But Edward Berger is set to direct this movie, and it is currently in a bidding war amongst major studios. So we'll see who actually ends up acquiring this and when it goes into production, where it's going to go. But Stuber does have a first look deal with Amazon, but this project got together before that deal was signed. So this is a great opportunity to talk about what a first look contract is. This producer had a deal signed with Amazon that would basically say, hey, any movie that I'm developing, you get first dibs. You get first dibs. You can look at it. If you want it, it's yours. If you don't want it, I can shop it around. So the fact that this movie is in a bidding war is the fact that this movie came together before that deal was signed. So it was not part of that first look deal. So anybody could have it. So this could be a Netflix movie. This could be a 20th century movie. But it's not going to be a Warner Brothers movie. Let's face it. This movie is being written by Zach Baylin, who wrote King Richard, which of course gave Will Smith his Oscar on that very controversial year. And we will see where this goes. Honestly, I think this has potential to be really cool. I am really, 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 really tired of the musical biopics and the musician biopics. However, sport athlete, specifically sport athlete who has a monumental rise and a monumental fall, this could be really promising. This could be really interesting. So I'm going to say this goes on the list. This goes on the list for sure. Moving on here, folks, we have the SAG-AFTRA, the WGA, and the DGA negotiations all coming up. And today, on the day we are recording, on Monday, SAG-AFTRA is back in the negotiating room. So if you don't remember, which I would be shocked if you didn't, SAG-AFTRA and the WGA were in negotiations back in 2023, and it did not go well, and we hit a 118-day strike, a historic strike for the entertainment industry. It is the reason why everything that's come out this year and late last year was stuff that was supposed to come out much sooner. So a lot of things got moved around because of those strikes, and all of these contracts are up for renegotiation, and folks are not here to play around. So SAG-AFTRA is back to negotiate as of today. This time around, SAG will be the first to negotiate, where last time the DGA, the Directors Guild, was the first guild to negotiate, and they signed a deal with the AMPTP quite quickly. Now we will see how it goes for the actors. They're up first, and then followed by the writers, and then the directors. New leadership on both sides, as we know. Sean Astin, former Goonie, is the new president of SAG-AFTRA, and Greg Heisinger is now the representative from the AMPTP. It's a tongue twister, okay? Give me some grace here. These are some of the issues on the table that we are really trying to get deals made for. So they on the subject of AI, SAG-AFTRA is hoping to put in place what they call a Tilly tax, which I absolutely love. If you don't know what Tilly refers to, that references Tilly Norwood, which is a fake AI actress that allegedly has major studios and major casting agencies chomping at her door. Frankly, I feel like that's all just smoke that the CEO is blowing up. But in either case, what this Tilly tax would do would essentially tell a studio that if they choose to go with synthetic performers rather than real actors, it will pay a royalty for union pensions and health funds. So their goal is to say, okay, if you don't want to pay for actors, by using AI actors, by using AI representatives instead, you will pay a tax towards union pensions and healthcare. So you will help fund and support basic human needs for card-carrying SAG-AFTRA members who are not working because you chose to work with AI. Additional priorities for them is, of course, streaming residuals. We did have a historic win with streaming residuals back with the initial strike and the initial deal that was worked up in 2023. That being said, there's still a lot of money left on the table there as far as residuals and, you know, money that folks are owed for work that they did ages ago or work that is being created now. So they're hoping to see a refresh on those deals. Health and pensions, of course, healthcare. Everybody deserves healthcare, even actors. So not every actor that you know, not every card-carrying union member actor is a Margot Robbie or a Ryan Gosling who can afford to go to any doctor they want to. A lot of these people are just everyday paycheck to paycheck people, just like anyone else that you may know. And they also need to pay for doctors and health insurance. So they're hoping to get some more support in that area. And then exclusivity, which is something that, frankly, I was not as familiar with how much it was impacting actors nowadays, especially as it comes to streaming. Streamers will sign actors to exclusivity deals, which basically say, hey, you cannot get into another contract, you cannot do another starring role or another major role in anything or in a competing service until we finish whatever we've contracted you for, which in theory wouldn't be so bad. But when the streaming cycle has made it so that sometimes we have 2, 3, 5 years in between seasons of televisions, you might be fully locked in and unable to do anything for that amount of time. And if your residuals aren't that good and your health pension's not that good, that's not great. So hopefully they're trying to see exclusivity contracts fade away, or at the very least change from the way that they currently are. Looking ahead, the WGA's contract expires May 1st and the DGA expires on June 30th, along with SAG-AFTRA. So the clock is ticking. I believe the WGA and SAG-AFTRA have made it pretty clear that they are more than willing to go on strike again. So here's hoping we don't have to go into that and that we can instead agree to make some of these concessions. That being said, the DGA chief was recently on a podcast and talked about what the priorities are for the DGA, which, funny enough, pretty much line up with the SAG-AFTRA's priorities, with a few exceptions here. So DGA's number one priority is jobs, making sure that jobs are available and accessible, healthcare, and of course AI. So when it comes to jobs, there was a worldwide drop in production for television last year in 2024 from 35% to 40%. And right now, the data that they're showing for overall productions of television show is even worse. Those official numbers haven't released yet, but it's tracking and looking like there is less work for directors year over year. And for that being the case, we need to amend the types of contracts and the type of deals that directors get. And again, similar to actors, not every single director is a Christopher Nolan. Not every single director is, a Patty Jenkins, right? Like, there are some directors out there who just make their money on small television projects, that make their money on, reality TV show directing, things like that. Cake Boss hasn't been on air for years. Chopped has directors, right? HGTV shows, Flip This House has directors, right? And those people, just like you and me, they have paychecks, they have families, and they have bills that they got to pay. And if there's less work overall, they're not going to be able to get those things paid. So production is down throughout the entire world, as the DGA's data suggests. It's more down in the US, but it's kind of down everywhere. So they're hoping to see a lot going on to create more opportunities for jobs, and hopefully bring some international jobs back into the US. We're fighting not just to get more tax incentives here in the States, but you're fighting against so much when you go overseas. Currency exchanges, exchange rate differences, other things, as well as, let's not mention the fact that folks traveling, leaving their families behind, not paying into their local economies, restaurants, grocery stores, etc. There's a lot of trickle-down effects from productions not being in the United States. So they're really hoping to, along with making better deals with the MPA, they're also hoping for some federal incentives to get passed. So those are some of the priorities for the DGA. And speaking on the DGA, let's do a quick little jump over, a little side tangent. The Directors Guild of America just hosted their Directors Guild Awards, where, of course, they honor directors of all different categories. And this is, as far as our awards race goes, our first sign of maybe where the director's race is going. Now, we've talked about this before. The Oscars race for 2026 is an absolute stacked one. Let me get the nominees up here for you. So we have, popping over here, Chloe Zhao, Josh Safdie, Joaquin Trier, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Ryan Coogler are our nominees for Best Director. And the DGA is your first sign of maybe who to keep an eye out for. And the winner of the Directors Guild Award for Theatrical Feature Film is Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. So is this our sign that PTA could be taking the Academy Award? Maybe. He's definitely seeming like a front runner at this point, but we are not locking in our official predictions yet. They're too high of stakes. If I'm really shooting for 85%, I really need to lock in here. So we'll take a look, but this is our first signs of life as far as this Oscars race goes. I'm going to be keeping an eye out on that. All right, tangent over, back to negotiation and the world of the entertainment industry and what we're trying to do to have it go better and look a little bit better. We do have lawmakers that are currently looking to basically ensure that things are going to go and be all right in this industry. So we had Senator Adam Schiff and Representative Laura Friedman hoping to get assurances from both Netflix and Paramount Skydance, basically saying, hey, if either one of you wins this Warner Brothers deal, we need guarantees that we are going to see the promises that you're making, essentially, and see actual improvements in the world of film and television. We expect and look forward to your company's public commitments to protecting, growing, and reassuring the hundreds of thousands of industry workers and their families in your respective bids. Frankly, it would be nice to get their word, and it would be nice to get their public commitment, but do we trust them? Do we trust any of it? Would we trust it if they say, we promise that if we buy Warner Brothers, things are going to be okay? We don't know, man. We don't know. Skydance just merged with Paramount and they fired like 70% of their workforce. Don't quote me on that number, but they did fire a bunch of people, right? When Discovery acquired Warner Brothers, they fired so many people. It happens. It happens constantly, and we see it time and time again. I don't have any reason to believe that somebody spending hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire a 100-year-old studio would incentivize them to say, yes, let us create more jobs. That makes me nervous. They're also asking, what concrete steps will you take to preserve and expand good-paying film and television jobs in Los Angeles? Schiff and Friedman also noted that they are working on bipartisan legislation to create a federal film incentive, which would augment state-based tax credits. This, to me, is a much bigger deal than trying to just get a public commitment of we're going to do the right thing from Netflix and Paramount. Creating actual federal incentives to keep the entertainment industry in the United States would be great. They're claiming that they want to model this after the success of California, Louisiana, Georgia, and make the U.S. a much more competitive, competitive provider in the global market. Heck, why can't we have UK-based productions want to come over here to film and Australia productions come over here to film? I don't blame them, but why couldn't we? Why couldn't we, right? So frankly, I think that that's the part of the story that gets me more excited, especially knowing that this could actually be a bipartisan effort. Look, let's throw away this random ass idea about putting tariff on foreign films or putting a tariff on movies that weren't filmed in the States. I can't even wrap my head around like the logistics of how that would even function. But at the very least, if we can federalize the tax incentives for entertainment being kept locally in the States, yeah, that's a great deal. Fund the arts, people. Fund the arts. We have people who are watching content and going, why did this? How did this? They need to consume more. They don't get it. They're not getting it. We need to fund the arts. But hey, looking back here into smaller picture, but still a pretty big deal for some of us. Want to shout out here, Dropout recently made an announcement in Variety that they have hired new executives, and hey, shout out Dropout. I see a lot of women here in executive positions in the entertainment industry. Love to see that. But let's give these people a shout out. So Dropout has hired new heads of production, marketing, and development team. So Alexandria Black Davis is head of marketing, Lindsay Wilkinson is head of production, and Elise Finley and Rosie Keller as development managers. Those are the ones I'm a little more excited about. But let's talk about it. So Dropout is formerly known as College Humor, now known as Dropout, a new independent streaming service. For me, some of the best content that exists out there. Incredible improv-based comedy, Dungeons and Dragons show with Dimension 20, Game Changers, Make Some Noise, Smarty Pants, so many different exclusives that are all incredible, that are boosting incredible voices in comedy in the smaller scenes. Folks who we keep seeing in Super Bowl commercials and in pilot seasons, and one of them even on SNL this past year. So clearly it's a great launch pad for a lot of creatives, and they're putting a lot more effort into making sure that they're standing out amongst the rest. So Dropout very famously, even on the year that they really exploded a couple years ago, when they really launched their productions into much more shows were being greenlit and much more people were jumping onto the platform. They had no paid marketing. It was all just organic social marketing and then a couple little pushes here and there. So their president CEO of Dropout, Sam Reich, has talked about it on interviews before, that they didn't really have marketing strategies except for make good content and put the content out there and see it organically grow. But now, of course, that has changed with bringing a new head of marketing in. The additions are part of Dropout's overall strategy to grow its development state, license and acquire new programming. That's a big deal. And expand production capabilities and prioritize marketing strategies for each project. Now, let's talk about the thing that I'm excited about as a fan of Dropout. Sure, licensing shows would be great, especially if they license content from smaller creators and give them a greater jumping pad. And yes, new content, hell yeah. But specifically, as it relates to Finley and Kaller, the new heads of development, who I would imagine are developing new content. Finley is a Disney veteran who comes to Dropout having worked on Disney's Mickey Mouse and DuckTales. And Kaller is an extensive background in late night television, including John Mulaney's Everybody's in LA and The Late Late Show with James Corden. So could we see some animated shows and a possible late night show coming to Dropout soon? Maybe. I hope so. That would be pretty fun. CEO Sam Reich said, as we hit a new milestone as a business, expanding our production, development, and marketing teams is a natural and exciting next step. We can't wait to see how these talented team members elevate what we bring and how we bring to our audiences. So shout out to Dropout, man. Like Chad is saying here, I hope that Big TV is getting scared, because these independent streamers, man, they know what they're doing. Dropout recently launched a more expensive version of itself, because when they announced that their prices were increasing by like $1 a month, enough people said, we'll pay you more, that they launched an even larger subscription model. So clearly it's working out for them in some way, shape, or form. But folks, that is going to wrap it up here for Movie News Mondays. So thank you so much for everyone who stuck around live. I really appreciate you. As always, we do Movie News Monday live on twitch.tv/JupyGorg on Mondays. Stop by, chat. We don't just do the news. We play some games. We talk about other stuff. This week, we talked about Super Bowl trailers. So stick around for that. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you want me to talk about soon. Do you think I'm going to hit 85% on the Oscars? Yes, I will. Make sure you're following on TikTok and Instagram and all the other socials for our short form content. But folks, thank you so much for sticking around. As always, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you at the movies. Bye, chat. Say goodnight. Bye, YouTube. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good week. Goodbye.